Good morning and welcome to BBOC Live, presented by BetMGM. It's Saturday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Elite Eight college basketball betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me today are Charlie DiSturco, Anthony DeBundo, and Mike Calabrese. We have a lot to get to today. We'll cover all four Elite Eight games, two today, two tomorrow. We'll also speak with Sean Kerner to get his favorite props, and Dano Mattia for some women's action. Before we get started, I do want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. And as I previously mentioned, BBOC Live is presented by North Carolina's newest sportsbook, BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Gentlemen, we have the Elite Eight, aka some high seeds in the ACC. It's a quasi-ACC tournament. Charlie, any quick thoughts on what you saw in the Sweet 16?
Man, I mean, I guess we might as well be shooting threes against NC State because we might have just as good of a shot as Marquette. This was pretty brutal.
Yeah, Clemson and NC State, we are headed on a collision course where they will face off and both teams will shoot 2 of 30 from three. So make sure you bet that under if that is the matchup. Anthony, any takeaways from Sweet 16 other than the unfortunate Jamal Shed injury? Just a brutal loss for Houston, who looked like they were just going to suffocate Duke that entire game until he got hurt. That's tough break for Houston with all their injuries to go down like that.
Yeah, I'm looking into how to donate a right ankle. I'm not sure that's physically possible, but if it were, I would give it to Shed and we could have a better tournament finale here. And I think, we love upsets, but I would have preferred to have seen Caleb Love versus his old team. I would have preferred to have seen Houston in the Final Four. But we are going to get, the one chalk region, Purdue and Tennessee. So I'm excited to see that one. And I think the first matchup tonight, Illinois, if they can get going, could really maybe be the best threat left to beat Yukon. It's not a crazy take.
We will talk about both of those games. I am really looking forward to Purdue, Tennessee. Purdue Gonzaga was a bit of a letdown. Calabrese, your boy, Rick Barnes, into the Elite Eight.
He is in the Elite Eight. I can't wait to discuss that one because apparently everyone's on the Tennessee bandwagon, but we'll get there in a second. I'm more interested in terms of the conspiracy theory that's floating around on Twitter in terms of the balls being overinflated. There has to be some explanation for some of the sloppy ball handling, and the three-point shooting is just so far away. Like, you have teams that are entering as top 25, long-range marksmen, and all of a sudden they can't throw it in the ocean. So if this is the case and they did overinflate the basketballs, I just can't understand why they would do this. Why they play with different basketballs in the first place, I think it's ridiculous. But the fact that this isn't a bigger story nationally, and really it goes back to last year too. This isn't the first time we've seen this during March Madness. To be able to impact the quality of the products that you're putting on the floor, it's really befuddling to me. And I want someone from the NCAA to answer for it.
Not the only sport facing juice ball allegations.
I was going to say, they're directing all questions. I tried to contact the NCAA. They're directing all questions to Rob Manfred for those inquiries. All right, but let's get to the games. The Elite Eight, which will tip off tonight. Let's start with Yukon taking on Illinois. In Boston, obviously have a bit of a home crowd advantage here. This is, for me, Yukon, look, they've been a wagon. I tried to bet against them, learn my lesson. I'm not betting against Yukon in the tournament until further notice. I would need a bit more points here. They are now, 9-0 against the spread over the past two tournaments. They're winning every game by double digits with ease. They have so many ways to beat you. Now, one day of prep for that Illinois defense against this Yukon offense. I can't lay it here at this number. My raw number is actually a little shorter. So this is a pass for me. I do think the Illinois offense will have some success and has a chance to score on this Yukon defense. They're super talented. Terrence Shannon can't be stopped. Can he get Yukon into foul trouble? Can he get Klingon into foul trouble just getting into the into the lane. That's a possibility, but that Illinois defense might be in major trouble here. So this is a pass for me. Charlie, you are taking the dive here.
Yeah, listen, I guess I didn't learn from you taking San Diego State last time out, and I'm going to be the one that goes against the world here and take Illinois plus 9. There's still some 9s in the market right now. I just think, like you said, this offense does have paths to success. Their 5-out offense can give Klingon and Yukon trouble. And Terrence Shannon Jr., as great as he's been right now, I think that he can potentially draw some fouls on Klingon. He's not going to be afraid of driving to the hoop. This is going to be a game where more sustained possessions are going to happen. And Yukon, they like to play at a slower pace. They don't force many turnovers on the defensive end. They just play you straight up. So Illinois should have plenty of opportunities on the offensive end. And they've been clicking, especially with the emergence of Dane Danger as well around the rim. I think that they can at least slow down this Yukon juggernaut offense. So, I mean, listen, it's a scary time to fade Yukon, but the entire public's on them. So I'm going to go against the world here. I think Illinois' size matches up well on the boards. So give me the Illini. Ow.
The public is like 80% in the tournament. That means nothing. Devondre, are you taking the plunge?
I am not. I'm going to be looking to hedge live. I have an Illinois Final Four ticket that I think is drawing almost dead. I mean, they're not totally dead, but I'm passing here pregame. I think the quick turnaround really favors Yukon. It's a really tough prep for this Yukon offense. They run so many different screens and motions, and Illinois' defense has been kind of a mess against those kinds of offenses this year. And so I think that's a problem for them. Also, the home court, Gamble East, Calabrese was there the other night. He can attest to it. Like, it's a huge advantage, the fact they played essentially 4 home games or quasi home games to get to the Final Four here. I do agree with Charlie, though. I think the 5-out can cause some problems. The problem is that they bring Danger on the floor. Isn't that kind of playing into Yukon's hands? Like, I know he's played well, but I think maybe going small is the best way. But really, I think the biggest concern for me here, I lean toward the over, but there's no value in the number. Yukon, all the cutting actions and the mid-range offense, they're both really elite offensively, and that's where Illinois has really struggled defensively, and that's where the drop coverage they play with Hawkins is designed to give up. So I think in a way Yukon's well designed to also score in this game, and like Stuck said, I have no interest in betting against the juggernaut. It's kind of we can't power rate them high enough at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they also dealt with injuries during the year, so it's hard to get a read with how really dominant this team's been, but there's no question how dominant they've been in the tournament over the past 2 seasons. Even if their path hasn't been particularly difficult, they're still taking care of business with ease. And word is Danny Hurley is upset with the committee that they didn't get to play these games in stores. That's the word. He knows how to motivate them. You got to give him credit there. Calabrese, what are you looking at here?
I'm going to go with the over here. I think it's a little misleading in terms of Yukon's pace metrics. They're in the 300s. They can play slow, but when they get into a game and potentially a team challenges them to play faster, they have no problem whatsoever playing at a much faster pace and scoring in the 80s and 90s. When you look at their postseason play, the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament, 4 of their last 6 games, they've been playing in the 80s. And when they played against the faster teams in the Big East, St. John's and Xavier, they scored 95 in their last game against St. John's, and they averaged 93 points per game against Xavier, who was the quickest team pace-wise in the Big East. And then finally, the Illini are one of the most profitable over teams in the entire country. They cashed over 70% of their over tickets, and they beat that closing number by close to 8 points per game. So I think there's going to be some big runs in this game. I understand that it is a home court and there's going to be a kind of an electric energy that Yukon can feed off of. But at the end of the day, I just trust their half-court offense to be absolutely ruthless against an Illinois defense that, yes, they're getting a little bit better metrically, but they faced Iowa State, they faced Duquesne, they faced Moorhead. How much of that is empty calories? I think a big portion of that is just in terms of the offenses that they faced, and I think UConn's going to carve them up here. So I see a game where UConn probably gets to 90 points in this one, and it cruises past the total.
So how was the atmosphere?
The atmosphere was really, really strong. I will give credit to San Diego State. They brought a decent amount of fans, but not only UConn's aggressiveness in terms of their fan base cheering on their teams, they were also telling San Diego State to stick a sock in it. Like, you would think that they had some like old school rivalry going or something. So it's not enough for UConn just to win. They want to dominate, and that goes from Hurley on the sidelines all the way up to the cheap seats.
All right, good stuff. We will have more on this game when we bring in Sean Kerner for his favorite props. But let's move on to the other game tonight between Clemson and Alabama. We have 3 ACC teams in the Elite Eight, but one of them is not the 1 seed North Carolina, surprisingly, after Alabama had a wild win where Grant Nelson had an incredible second half, and North Carolina goes home. Clemson will take on Alabama here. I personally think this line is now too high. The one thing that gives me, so I like Clemson at this number. Also have our podcast, listen to Big Bets on Campus. We have a Clemson Final Four future, which hopefully can cash. But look, I am worried about the Clemson defensive 3-point regression. No one can make a 3 against them. And now you're going up against Alabama, who's going to, plenty of capable shooters, is going to chuck a bunch of 3s, especially if Clemson continues to play the way that they have been on defense. But Alabama's defense still has major issues I think Clemson could take advantage of. By the way, this is a rematch of a game from earlier this season. Clemson won at Alabama, and 3 of the 4 games in the Elite Eight are rematches from the regular season, for what it's worth. But this Alabama team also might not be at full strength. Suffered a couple nicks during the game, and you have Reitzel, who we're not sure on his status. I am a bit afraid of the 3-point regression, as I mentioned, but I think Clemson has plenty of paths to offense here. So I think this number is too high. Charlie, what do you see here between Clemson and Alabama?
Yeah, so last time, Clemson played, I gave out a PJ Hall prop, and I'm going to go back to the well with him here and his over on points and rebounds. The last time they played, by the way, Alabama and Clemson, PJ Hall, 21 points, 8 rebounds, and that was despite playing just 21 minutes because he was in foul trouble. Seems like that's the name of the game for him, avoiding foul trouble. And if he doesn't, I think he's absolutely set up for a lot of success against this Alabama interior. Their defense is still a liability. We saw Baycock go for 19 and 12. I just think that this game sets up well for PJ. He can space the floor. He can really take advantage of an aggressive Alabama team. He's a strong free throw shooter. This is just a high pace, so there's a lot more rebound opportunities as well. So push comes to shove, I'm going back to the well here. Just 1 higher point in rebound than it was the last game. Still the same pace. And Action Labs projects around 27.5, a near 15% edge. So we still haven't seen a true PJ Hall breakout game. If he can play 25, 30 minutes, I think we can easily see him go, 25 and 10 here.
Yeah, much less likely, I think, to get in foul trouble in this particular matchup, I would say. So that helps. He's a guy that has been in foul trouble plenty this season. Yep. Anthony, it looks like you're wearing some, I don't know if it's not Alabama red, but you agree that the line is too high.
I'm wearing my Houston red in solidarity. Clemson, I didn't really want to bet them here, but now I have to. I agree with you, Stuck. Clemson here, they have the shot makers to punish Alabama. Now, the biggest thing I said coming into the tournament, why I was kind of out on Clemson, was their perimeter defense, just giving up a lot of open 3s. And look, that's still been true, even though they haven't given up many made 3s, but they've had a clear approach, and it's we're going to go under every screen. We're going to take away the rim. They were pretty successful guarding the rim against Arizona. And then, of course, the perimeter, Arizona made nothing. But going under every screen and daring Alabama to get into a jump shooting contest, yes, Bama can run hot and win this game going away if they do. But I think Clemson has the shot makers to go shot for shot with them offensively. And I also don't know what Bama does to stop the bigs, which had a lot of success in the first meeting. And I think we'll have a lot of success in this meeting as well. We saw Bama kind of pack the paint and sag off the bad North Carolina shooters. Clemson has enough shooters to make that strategy much harder to pull off. So at 3.5 now, I like Clemson, and I'm going to hate it because I've been against this Clemson team a couple times and going to get burned probably now that I'm on them.
Now you're mushing our Final Four ticket, but I agree. It's like you have 2 teams that are very capable of heating up from the outside, going shot for shot. What could be the difference maker? It could be that Clemson is much more depth at defending at the rim, right? So they'll have a better chance of getting easier buckets, especially in crunch time, in a game that should have some swings back and forth. Calabrese, what are you seeing here?
I'm leaning slightly to Alabama in terms of the pregame bet, but I think there's a much better opportunity to get a live number. You got to keep in mind this Alabama offense is always ready for a quick run. They had 29 kill shot runs, a 10 or better during the season, which is a really impressive number. So if they fall down early and you get closer to even money or some plus money, I think that's the spot to hop in, because eventually you have to imagine that this luck is going to run out for the Tigers. 12 for 65 That's what opponents are shooting from 3-point range during the big dance. Yet the Tigers still aren't a top 100 3-point defense. So that's how far they've come, and they still have a lot further to go in terms of leaving people wide open. So yes, I think that their win in Tuscaloosa was impressive. That's why I'm only leaning a little bit here with Bama, but I need to give Oates and his staff credit. By no means is this a good defense, but they were trending historically bad in terms of how they're playing on the road. Points per possession defense was in the 300s away from Tuscaloosa. Now all of a sudden they play against North Carolina. They put together a good game plan. They're able to win that game with some nice stops down the stretch. So I don't know. I think in terms of Alabama playing their best basketball, they are at this point. So I'm going to go with them both pregame and then on a live number.
All right, let's take a break in the action and bring in the odds maker, Mr. Sean Kerner. A little hiatus for the prop doctor, Nick Giffen. I guess I'm going to call you the prop practitioner. Kerner, what's going on, brother?
What's up? Yeah, Nick's crushing it. I'll see if I could somehow pick up where he left off, though.
I think he's like 65 and 25. Make sure you check out Action Network Discord and him on the Action Network app. But where do you want to start here today for one of your two favorite props?
Yeah, let's start with this Illinois Yukon game. Let's go with Marcus Damask. Under 5.5 rebounds, you can get even money right now. Over the past couple weeks, I've lost fading him on 3-pointers and assists a couple of times. So let's try fading him at a different stat this time with rebounds. This is just a tough matchup for Damask to get 6+ boards here. Yukon's a very good rebounding team. Plus they play at a, pretty slow pace, which is going to lower the expected number of possessions in this matchup, lower the, expected potential rebounds for Damask here. And Yukon is an excellent shooting team. They rank top 6 in effective field goal percentage. So this is a really tough spot, especially considering, how much Yukon does lean on high percentage shots inside. It's less likely Damask will be involved in those potential rebounds. So all of these factors are why we're projecting him for about 1 rebound lower than this at 4.6 with about a 64% chance he stays under 5.5 rebounds here.
Pretty good edge there. What else you got?
The other one's Joe Girard of Clemson to go over 13.5 points, excuse me. But he's struggling with shot.
16.5 sounds like a ladder.
Well, yeah, you know what? Do it. That's where we're projecting him. So I think this is definitely ladderable. We're about 3 points higher than this line. But, he's really struggled with his shot in March Madness so far, only shooting 22% from beyond the arc. Should see some positive regression here against Bama. Bama obviously plays at an extremely fast pace, which will allow for just more possessions and scoring chances for Girard. Plus, they send their opponents to the free throw line at a very high rate, which is great news for Girard, who's a 94% shooter at the line this year. So this is just a really good spot for him to get back on track. Like I said, we're projecting him closer to 16 points, which is exactly how many points he scored against Bama back in November earlier this year. So we're projecting him with about a 63% chance to clear 13.5. And he gets hot here. That's why I think this is ladderable. I would take him, over 15.5, over 16.5. Yeah, there's like a 20 points or more at like 3-1. I would consider sprinkling some on that as well.
Yeah, Gerard certainly due to get a shot. He even missed like 2 of 3 free throws, which I can't imagine has ever happened in his career when he was fouled on a 3. And you're right, Bama does foul a lot, and Gerard certainly could capitalize. I'm going to join you on that one. Nice. Good luck to you finally having success fading Damask as well. Enjoy the games, and thanks for your time, Sean.
Thanks. Good luck today.
Thanks, brother. All right, before we move on here, if you've ever wanted to try the best version of the Action app, that time is now, because we're running a special offer on Action Pro. To celebrate the start of the NCAA tournament, you can try Pro Access for just $9.99 for the first month. With Action Pro, you get our biggest betting model edges, real-time money percentages, data-driven systems, NCAA tournament player prop projections from the predictive analytics team of Sean Kerner and Nick Giffen, and lots more. Just visit actionnetwork.com/madness to take advantage before this deal expires. That's actionnetwork.com/madness. All right, let's take another break and shift to some women's action and bring in Dano Mattia.
What's up, everybody? Dano Mattia here. live in Albany, New York, where I'll be seeing LSU take on UCLA, and then Caitlin Clark and Iowa take on Colorado. I'm going to start my two favorite bets of the day for the Sweet 16. I'm taking Iowa minus 6.5. Iowa's just due. They got over the nerves and pressure of winning those two games at home. 6.5 is a little too small for me for a team that has as much offensive firepower as Iowa. They're going to run. The guards are going to contribute. We won't see another game this season where none of the other guards hit a three besides Caitlin Clark. It was the first one all season against West Virginia, and then Caitlin's absolutely due. She's due for a big game. A lot of pressure on her shoulders, but I'm happy that she's finally gotten away from home and looking to see something big. I mean, she dropped a 38-point triple-double in this round last year, so looking forward to see what she does today. So laying the 6.5 with Iowa. Next, I'm going to be taking the USC Trojans, laying 3.5 against Baylor. Baylor had the easiest route so far, probably of any higher seed coming into the Sweet 16, but USC is too much size, and of course Juju Watkins. Baylor hasn't seen a guard like her pretty much all season. Not many people have. She's incredible. Rhea Marshall's been doing great. She should have a nice size advantage inside. Kayla Padilla should be able to stop anybody on the perimeter. So I love taking USC here. I think the line is almost disrespectful at this point. As a 1 seed, they should be laying a lot more than 3.5 against a 5 seed in Baylor. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, Dano. And good luck with the women's action today to anyone partaking. But let's get back to the men's and shift to Sunday. Let's start with a little rematch of the ACC tournament between Duke and NC State. If I had to bet this, I'd lean Duke here, see if this comes down a little bit. But this is a pretty big correction from what the line was when these two teams faced not too long ago in the NCAA tournament. And teams aren't, or maybe they will, but I don't think they're going to keep missing threes the way that opponents have against the Pac. Prior to that game against Marquette, over their previous 6 games, opponents were shooting 27% from deep. Before those games, their first 32 games of the season, they were outside the top 300 in three-point defense. And then what did Marquette do? They shot 4 of 31 from beyond the arc. Duke's not the team that you want to be facing when your defense is due for some potential regression. So I'd lean Duke here. Charlie, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I grabbed Duke at minus 5.5 on open. Still would play it at the 6. That's still bet number available, and or 6.5 too. Like you said, right? Like you could go to the local YMCA, pick 5 of the guys playing in a pickup game, and they might be better than Marquette did yesterday. They shot 4 of 31, and you go back and look at the 27 threes. A lot of them were left completely wide open and unguarded. I don't know if it's the ACC voodoo defense that's happening, but I think this is a great spot for Duke to just maul NC State. They're fresh off that last time these two played each other, Duke was obviously, they fell in the ACC tournament, but NC State's been benefiting a lot from the luck. And if you look at Duke in the last month, they're number 3 per Bart Torvik in just total efficiency. They're 10th defensively and 13th on the offensive end. Like you said, you don't want to have looming 3-point regression coming and have Jared McCain, Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, just the whole cast of crew that Duke has looming around the perimeter. NC State, 74th defensively in the last month. I'm not sure how they're going to really stop this Blue Devils offense. I think we could see a complete blowout. So I'm going to take the Blue Devils here as a strong favorite.
Yeah, but I will say there is something about this NC State team that's just, they just have everything going at the right time. Anthony, what are you saying?
Yeah, so the line was 9.5 in the AC tournament, and now it's 6.5. And yes, you should say, oh, we have to upgrade NC State. They just won, 8 games in a row, and look at them, and they go 5-5, and they get to the Elite 8. But shouldn't we also upgrade Duke? I mean, Duke has covered all 3 games against the number. They dominated JMU. Yes, they were fortunate with Shed going out injured yesterday, but still, played, to a draw. Shed, I think they still would have been in the game, even if they lost yesterday with Shed out there. So they were able to execute offensively down the stretch, hit tough shots, but I think shot quality graded NC State's win over Marquette as a 16-point loss. Sam Fetterman tweeted the clip this morning. You can go look at every Marquette 3. Most of them were wide open. They were not guarded attempts. It's pretty remarkable. And NC State is vulnerable to teams that have good shot makers, and Duke has plenty of that. So I like Duke here, laying 6.5.
Calabrese, what are you saying?
I'm going to use Duke as a money line sweetener. I think this number is a little bit depressed. It should probably be closer to 7 or 8, but I'm not interested in, losing on a backdoor. I'd rather tag this on to some of my other plays. And everything everyone's laying out, I think, is true. Duke has been playing as a top 5 consensus team in the analytics community really for the past month. And defensively, what they did against James Madison, super impressive. And I understand Shed being out, but they really buttoned themselves up on the offensive, or keeping Houston off of the offensive glass. And you knew that Cryer was going to get his shots off and Sharp potentially could hurt you, and they just wouldn't allow it to happen. So I think in terms of their performance there, I'm giving them a bump as well against an NC State team. Even if they just shoot, let's call it 33% from 3-point range, I think they win this one pretty comfortably. And I think at some point, the bottom has to fall out for an NC State defense that just keeps losing shooters and leaving people wide open.
All right, let's move on to the game I'm looking forward to the most this weekend, and the game that we're going to have some disagreement on, and that is Purdue, Tennessee in the chalky region. I personally like Tennessee here. I think that this line is a bit too high, and Tennessee matches up pretty well with Purdue. These teams met earlier this season, and Purdue won by 4 in Maui. They shot 50 free throws in that game. I think 48 was the actual number. Tennessee also had an off shooting night. If that happens again, if Purdue shoots 50 free throws, they're going to win this game. But I don't think that we're going to get that crazy of a whistle this time around. Super impressed with Tennessee and in their victory over Creighton without one of their starters as well. They have Dalton Connect, who can just take over the game at any point. But I think the bodies that they can throw at Edey and the physicality that they can provide on the perimeter against Purdue's guards to bother their offense, I think that's ultimately going to be the difference. I think this is sort of a coin flippish game. I like the Vols. Charlie, what do you got here?
Yeah, I'd certainly lean toward the Vols in this one. I'm waiting on a Dalton Connect prop to drop. I'll probably end up on his over. I'm just not sure that he's going to shoot as inefficiently as he has recently. And in that game against Purdue, he was just 6 of 13. So expect more shots from Connect in this game. And with the final 4 on the line, I'm just expecting him to take a higher volume, closer to that 35-40% of total shots. So nothing from me altogether. I'm just kind of here, grab my popcorn, ready to hear Calabrese try and slander Rick Barnes more as Tennessee makes a run.
Yeah, before we get to that, Anthony, you're on the same side as me. You agree on the Vols.
Yeah, so pick Tennessee to beat Purdue in the Elite Eight before the racket. Still think that's going to happen. I think they have the depth in the front court. The thing about Purdue that scared me was their turnover margin. Both offensively and defensively, they are pretty mediocre for a 1 seed in terms of turnover margin. And teams historically that have that kind of turnover margin don't usually make deep runs into the Final Four and beyond and win national titles. So far, if you look at their opponents, Utah State, not very good turnover differential. Gonzaga, not very good turnover differential. Not teams that could really exploit what I think is Purdue's bigger weakness. And I think Tennessee is the first team they've played with the ball pressure and with the, Tennessee offensively underrated in how well they take care of the ball with Ziegler running point. I think this turnover differential is the key because you can't beat Purdue on the boards. You're just not going to. You have to make up for the shot volume somewhere else, and it has to be turnovers. And I think Tennessee has that formula plus the length and the depth in the front court to pull off this modest upset. I like Tennessee plus 3.5.
And we now take a break in the action to bring you the Rick Barnes slander portion of the show. Calabrese, what do you got here?
What does Purdue have to do for anyone to give them respect? I get it. They lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year. They're the butt of every joke. They had so many wins over top 25 teams. And by the way, they're covering all those numbers. Against ranked opponents, they're 7-1-1 against the spread. But apparently that's not good enough. All right, let's look at their head-to-head against Tennessee. You mentioned it. They beat them by 4. They only made 4 3-pointers in that game. So yes, they got to the line a ton of times.
But it's hard to shoot threes when you shoot 53 free throws. You're not really getting a chance to shoot some threes.
That is fair, but you bring up the fact that Tennessee has the bodies to throw at Edey. Edey's still at 23-10. And I think what's interesting is everything is like a sliding scale. It's like, oh, they held him in check. 23-10 was obviously good enough to get a win there. Then I look at some of like the advanced stats for Purdue. What I really like, as opposed to last year when they got sped up and they could get run off the court from time to time. They rarely give up big runs this year. 10-0 runs or more against them, only 6 for the entire season. And Tennessee's perimeter defense is very strong. But we just saw Creighton make 48% of their threes. So they found a way to do it with their shooters. I don't think that Purdue is in the same level in terms of, their guard play, but they're still good enough to get open looks and to knock down some shots. And they don't need to make double-digit threes to win a game like this. So even though I think the spread is just about right, I am on Purdue. I'm going to lay the points. And I think at the end of the day, the way that they're playing and the way that they've demonstrated their high-end level of play for the entire season, it's not just them running hot here at the end. Whereas Tennessee finally proved to me, I have to put my hand up, I was against them in the last game. That was really their best game of the last month, let's call it, against Creighton. They finally put together a 40-minute effort. They played better in the second half than they did in the first half. So kudos to Rick Barnes. I can tip my hat to him, but I still think that they are slightly below a Purdue team that's just been consistently great for the entire season. So I'll take the National Player of the Year and a team that I think is just more solid top to bottom than the Volunteers.
Calabrese. I want to Calabrese. You give Rick Barnes all this slander, right? 5-21 in the NCAA tournament, or 5-16 against the spread. Matt Painter in the Sweet 16 or later, only 2 of 7, 2 of 8 against the spread. 2 and 6.
Once again, as I said, apparently nothing this year matters. He's played. This team is obliterating people the entire season against ranked opponents. They go against a Zags team that I believe everybody was on and just blow them out of the water. But it doesn't matter. That's fine. The Purdue bandwagon,
that's the thing about Purdue.
No one else is allowed on at this point.
Purdue is not an exciting watch. You watch their games and you're like, oh, here we go. Foul, post up. It's not an exciting watch, but it is ruthlessly efficient, right? They make a lot of threes. They get fouled a lot. They get a lot of rebounds. But how do you beat them? I think the only way to really take out this Purdue team is the turnover differential. I'm going to harp on that. That's why I didn't think they would get, past this round. So I like Tennessee here. The best part of this is that one of them will make the Final Four, because I am really, really, really tired of college basketball coaches getting slandered every time they don't win the national championship and saying like Mark Few has been in the Final Four. He still can't win the big one. Kelvin Sampson can't win the big one. Matt Painter. So hopefully, we can get more of these coaches into the Final Four so we can stop doing this dumb slander, because only one team wins every year. And it's a dumb tournament.
Cal Reese is going to have to go into hibernation if Tennessee wins it this year and come up with a new shtick. But Creighton shot, you mentioned Creighton shot 50% from 3, and Tennessee still won with ease. I didn't think that was potentially going to happen. But the good thing is, we'll find out who's right and who's wrong tomorrow. And it'll probably just come down to 3-point variance and dumb in-game scenario. And the whistle will be big, obviously, in a lot of these games. But that'll do it for us. Thank you to Mike, Charlie, and Anthony for joining me. Also, thank you to Sean and Dano and our producers on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Before we get out of here, a couple final reminders. Make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. And also, BBOC is presented by North Carolina's newest sportsbook, BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 plus. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, that'll do it for us. Enjoy the Elite 8. We will be back next week for Final Four national title shows. Also, big bets on campus. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we'll have Final Four previews later in the week. Thanks for tuning in again. Good luck on all of your wagers, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.